Dramily.com, unlimited drama series.
The phone rang at 2:17 a.m., cutting through the silence like a rusty blade. I'd been lying awake anyway, staring at the water stain on our bedroom ceiling that looked like a middle finger. How's that for symbolism? Veronica was supposedly in Boston on another consulting emergency, which had become as frequent as my trips to the liquor store. Mr. Jack Connolly? The voice was clinical, tired. This is St. Mary's Hospital. We need you to come in for STD screening. Contact tracing protocol. I sat up so fast my neck cracked. Excuse me? Your wife, Veronica Connolly, tested positive for chlamydia. All sexual partners need immediate testing. The irony wasn't lost on me. Veronica always said she was allergic to latex. Turns out she was just allergic to honesty. After hanging up, I sat in our king-size bed, the one she'd insisted we buy because successful couples invest in quality sleep, and laughed until my ribs hurt. 15 years of marriage, and this is how I find out my wife's been moonlighting as the town bicycle. By morning, I'd made 3 decisions: get tested, hire a private investigator, and start drinking better whiskey. If my life was going to hell, at least the ride should be smooth. Ray Malone operated out of a cramped office above Murphy's pawn shop on Elm Street. The stairs creaked like arthritic bones, and his door bore the scars of a dozen unpaid debts. Ray looked like he'd been carved from old leather in disappointment, exactly what I needed. Cheating wife? He asked before I'd even sat down. You got that look. Seen it 1,000 times. That obvious? Brother, you're wearing yesterday's shirt. Your wedding ring's in your pocket instead of on your finger, and you smell like you've been marinating in bourbon. Either your wife's cheating, or you've developed a serious gambling problem. I handed him $500 in cash. How long? Give me a week. Maybe less if she's as sloppy as most of them. Ray was right about the sloppy part. 3 days later, he called me to his office with a manila envelope, thick enough to choke a horse. Your wife's got quite the hobby, he said, sliding a stack of DVDs across his desk. Each was labeled with a man's name in Veronica's neat handwriting: Greg S., Neil C., Tom from accounting. The last one made my blood freeze. Neighborhood fun. How many? I asked. 12 men that I counted. Some repeats, some group activities. Ray's weathered face showed genuine sympathy. Look, Jack, I've seen some nasty stuff in 30 years, but this, your wife's running a one-woman entertainment industry. I picked up the DVD labeled Greg S., Dr. Greg Spalding, our neighbor, local tech CEO, and the guy who'd borrowed my lawnmower every summer for 5 years. This one first. Ray slid an ancient laptop across the desk. You sure? Some things can't be unseen. The video quality was surprisingly good. Veronica had invested in proper equipment, probably wrote it off as a business expense. There she was in our guest bedroom, with Greg Spalding performing acts that definitely weren't covered in any neighborhood association handbook. But it was the next DVD that really got my attention. Neighborhood Fun featured Veronica with 3 men simultaneously, including Greg and Neil Carter, her coworker who'd been coming to our barbecues for years, the man who'd helped me install our deck, the man who'd consoled me when my father died. I need copies, I said, all of them. Jack, whatever you're thinking. I'm thinking my wife's been documenting her extracurricular activities like she's making a nature documentary. Seems only fair to share her work with a wider audience. That night, I turned our house into an art gallery. I printed the most revealing frames from each video and hung them throughout our home like family photos. Kitchen, living room, hallway, everywhere Veronica would look when she returned from her business trip. I left a note on the refrigerator. If you're going to star in home movies, at least dust the furniture first. The neighbors are starting to talk. Your loving husband and biggest fan. Then I packed a bag, left the house keys in the mailbox, and drove to my sister Molly's place across town. Molly opened her door at 6 a.m., looking like she'd wrestled with a tornado and lost. As a night shift nurse, she was used to crisis calls, but not from her brother carrying a duffel bag and wearing a smile that could cut glass. She cheated, I said before she could ask. Jesus, Jack, come in. Coffee's on. Molly's kitchen was the opposite of mine. Lived in, warm, decorated with her kids' artwork, instead of Veronica's expensive tastelessness. I told her everything while she made eggs and bacon, her face cycling through shock, disgust, and something that looked suspiciously like admiration. You wallpapered your house with porn photos? Evidence photos, I corrected. There's a difference. Is there, though? My phone had been buzzing nonstop since 7 a.m. Veronica's panicked voicemails, Greg's angry texts, even one from Neil Carter, claiming I'd misunderstood what I'd seen. I'd misunderstood a three-way in my guest bedroom? That was rich. But it was the call from Lisa Franklin that really made my day. Lisa was Veronica's best friend and the town's unofficial gossip dispatcher. She had a mouth like a PA system and the discretion of a town crier. Jack, honey, I just talked to Ronnie. She's devastated. There has to be some explanation. There is, I interrupted. She's a cheating whore who's been running a side business out of our bedroom. That's not, maybe it's not what it looks like. Lisa, I have high-definition video of your best friend taking more meat than a butcher shop. Unless she's been secretly training for the Olympics, I'm pretty sure I know what I saw. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, oh my God, the whole town's gonna know. Funny thing about that, I said. I'm counting on it. By noon, half of our social circle had called, texted, or driven by Molly's house. Word was spreading faster than Veronica's legs, and the reactions were split between horror and morbid fascination. Small towns love a scandal, especially when it involves someone who'd always acted like she was better than everyone else. Ray called around 2 p.m. with an update. Your wife's been trying to get into the house all morning. Changed the locks, did you? Didn't have to. The mortgage is in my name, and I called the bank. Turns out adultery voids certain spousal protections. Amazing what you learn when you actually read the fine print. She's been calling Greg Spalding nonstop. His wife answered the last 3 times. That was educational. I could picture it. Patricia Spalding was old money, the kind of woman who'd married beneath her station and never let anyone forget it. Learning her husband had been starring in amateur pornography with the neighbor's wife would not improve her disposition. What about Neil? Fired. His company has a morality clause. Apparently, participating in adultery videos violates their corporate ethics policy. 3 down, 1 to go. That evening, I drove back to my house for the first time since leaving my little art exhibition. The place looked like a crime scene. Police tape across the front door, neighbors gathered on sidewalks like vultures. Veronica's car was in the driveway, but she wasn't inside. Old man Harlan from next door shuffled over, grinning like he'd won the lottery. At 78, Harlan was the neighborhood's unofficial surveillance system, a retired machinist who spent his days watching everyone through his kitchen window. Hell of a show, Jack, he wheezed. Now, been better than cable. Where is she? Took off about an hour ago, but not before half the neighborhood got an eyeful. Your mother-in-law showed up around noon. Thought the poor woman was going to have a stroke. Perfect. Veronica's mother was a devout Catholic who'd never approved of me. Learning her daughter had been moonlighting as an adult film star would probably send her straight to confession for the next 6 months. You need anything, you let me know, Harlan continued. Been married 53 years myself. Sometimes a man's got to make a point. I found Veronica at the Riverside Motel on Route 9, a place that rented rooms by the hour and asked no questions. Fitting, really. Ray had tailed her there after she'd left the house, and we'd set up surveillance in his beat-up Chevy across the parking lot. Room 237, Ray muttered, adjusting his binoculars. She's not alone. Through the scope, I watched Greg Spalding's Tesla pull up. He looked around nervously before hurrying to Veronica's door. Even from a distance, I could see he was rattled. Good. How long, I asked. However long it takes. We're documenting everything now. Ray had brought professional equipment this time. Cameras with telephoto lenses, audio recording gear, the works. If Veronica wanted to be a star, I'd make sure she got the full production treatment. 20 minutes later, Neil Carter's Honda arrived. Then Tom from accounting in his minivan. My wife was hosting a reunion. Jesus, Ray whistled. It's like a convention in there. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger anymore. That had burned out hours ago. This was calculation, pure and simple. Veronica had spent 15 years making me feel inadequate, criticizing everything from my job to my clothes to my cooking. Turned out the problem wasn't me. The problem was that I'd been thinking too small. My phone buzzed with a text from Veronica. We need to talk. I can explain everything. I texted back, no need. The videos explain themselves. 3 minutes later, she called. I let it ring. Then Greg called. I answered on the first ring. Jack, listen, this isn't what you think. Greg, buddy, I've got high-definition footage of you doing things to my wife that would make a porn star blush. What exactly am I supposed to think? It's complicated. Ronnie said you two were having problems. The only problem I'm having is deciding which video to upload to Facebook first. The one where you're wearing my Harvard t-shirt, or the one where you're using my good towels. He hung up. They always hang up when you mention social media. By evening, Ray and I had enough footage to start our own cable channel. Veronica and her rotating cast of lovers had put on quite a performance, apparently unaware that motel windows aren't as private as they look. What's the plan? Ray asked as we packed up the equipment. Ever hear of the Streisand effect? The what? When you try to hide something, you just make it more famous. Veronica's spent her whole life trying to control her image. Time to see how she handles losing control completely. I started small. A few printed photos left on Greg's windshield. An anonymous email to Neil's ex-wife with some choice video clips. A package delivered to Tom from accounting's house when his teenage kids were home from school. But the real masterpiece was the family dinner. Sunday dinner at the Connolly house had been a tradition for 8 years. Veronica insisted on it. Her parents, my sister, sometimes a few friends. It's what successful couples do, she'd always said. We maintain connections. This Sunday would be special. I sent the invitations Tuesday morning. Veronica's parents, her sister Angela, Greg and Patricia Spaulding, Neil and his ex-wife Sarah, Tom from accounting and his family, even Lisa Franklin and her husband Mike. The message was simple. Emergency family meeting. Veronica has something important to share with everyone. Veronica had been staying at the motel, calling and texting nonstop, begging to work things out. I'd been polite but firm. Sunday dinner. We'd discuss everything then. I spent the week preparing professional catering. Veronica always criticized my cooking. Flowers, she loved appearances. And a special multimedia presentation that would make her the center of attention she'd always craved. Ray helped me set up the equipment. Laptops connected to every TV in the house, all synchronized to play simultaneously. Printed photos arranged like a gallery showing, each one carefully selected for maximum impact. The centerpiece was a poster-sized enlargement of Veronica, with all 3 men, mounted above the fireplace where her college diploma used to hang. You sure about this? Ray asked as we tested the system. She wanted to be the star of the show. I'm just giving her a bigger stage. Sunday arrived gray and cold, perfect weather for a funeral. The guests started arriving at 4 p.m., all of them looking confused and concerned. Veronica's mother kept asking where her daughter was. Greg looked like he wanted to bolt. Neil actually tried to leave twice, but his ex-wife Sarah grabbed his arm and hauled him back inside. What's this about, Jack? Patricia Spaulding demanded. She was a thin, sharp woman who'd never liked me, probably because I wasn't impressed by her family money. Just waiting for the guest of honor, I said, offering her wine. She should be here any minute. Veronica arrived at 4:30, looking haggard but determined. She'd dressed carefully, conservative blue dress, minimal makeup, the picture of wounded innocence. She hugged her parents, kissed her sister, even managed a smile for the Spauldings. Thank you all for coming, she said, shooting me a look that could have melted steel. I know Jack has some concerns about our marriage, but I'm sure we can work through this as a family. Absolutely, I agreed, raising my wine glass. To family and to sharing. Veronica's always been so good at sharing. I clicked the remote. Every screen in the house came alive simultaneously. The living room TV, the kitchen monitor, even the iPad on the counter, all playing the same video. Veronica and Greg in our guest bedroom, performing acts that definitely weren't covered in any marriage manual. The reaction was immediate and spectacular. Veronica's mother screamed and dropped her wine glass. Her father, a quiet man who'd worked in a factory for 40 years, went white and sat down hard. Angela gasped and covered her mouth. Patricia Spaulding stood frozen, staring at her husband's performance with the kind of expression usually reserved for natural disaster.
I saw her get in. I saw everything.
Let me explain.
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Jesus Christ, Jack, Greg shouted, lunging for the nearest TV. Turn it off. Why? I asked mildly. You seemed so enthusiastic during filming. Neil was trying to explain to his ex-wife that it wasn't what it looked like, which was difficult since the video clearly showed exactly what it looked like. Tom from accounting had grabbed his kids and was heading for the door, but his wife was rooted in place, watching her husband's performance with horrified fascination. The videos played for exactly 3 minutes. I'd edited them for maximum impact and minimum legal liability. When they ended, the silence was absolute. Veronica broke first. It's not... I can explain. Please do, her mother whispered. Explain how my daughter became a... entrepreneur? I suggested helpfully. Because that's really what this is. Veronica's been running a small business out of our home. Very small. Intimate, you might say. You bastard, Veronica hissed. You had no right? Actually, I had every right. It's my house, my bedroom, and my marriage you've been destroying. I'm just sharing your work with people who care about you. Patricia Spaulding finally found her voice. Gregory, get in the car. Now. Pat, honey, let me explain. The only thing you need to explain is why you're not already in the car. Greg tried to salvage the situation. This is all a misunderstanding. Jack's obviously having some kind of breakdown. The only thing breaking down is your marriage, I said. And your reputation. And probably your prenup, considering Patricia's family money comes with certain moral expectations. That did it. Greg took a swing at me, a clumsy haymaker that I saw coming from next Tuesday. I stepped aside and he stumbled into Harlan's garden gnome, which I'd brought inside as a conversation piece. He went down hard, his face meeting the ceramic with a satisfying crack. Greg! Veronica rushed to help him up, which was touching. Nothing says true love like helping your boyfriend off the floor after he's been humiliated in front of both your families. The dinner party broke up quickly after that. Veronica's parents left without speaking to either of us. Angela hugged me and whispered, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. Neil and his ex-wife were having a screaming match in the driveway. Tom from accounting was loading his family into their minivan like they were fleeing a natural disaster. Only Patricia Spaulding lingered, standing in my doorway with the kind of smile that made sharks look friendly. Thank you, she said quietly. I've suspected for months, but I needed proof. Happy to help. Gregory's going to be very unhappy when he sees the divorce papers. My family's lawyers are quite thorough. After everyone left, Veronica and I stood alone in our destroyed living room, surrounded by the wreckage of 15 years of marriage. Are you happy now? She asked. Getting there. The next morning brought consequences. My phone started ringing at 6 a.m. with reporters, neighbors, and random strangers who'd somehow gotten my number. Word had spread beyond our immediate circle. Social media was a beautiful thing. Someone had filmed Greg's pratfall with the garden gnome and posted it online. The video had been shared 300 times by noon, complete with commentary about cheating husbands getting what they deserve. Greg's company was fielding calls from clients who'd seen their CEO faceplant while trying to assault a cuckolded husband. Neil's firing had made the local business journal. Apparently, his company was using the incident to demonstrate their commitment to family values and ethical behavior. Nothing like a good scandal to help corporations virtue signal. But the real prize was Patricia Spaulding's divorce filing, which became public record that afternoon. She was seeking dissolution of marriage based on adultery, with a request for all marital assets and a restraining order. Greg's prenup, it turned out, had a morality clause that voided his claim to any of Patricia's family money if he committed adultery. How much is he losing? I asked Ray, who'd been monitoring the legal filings. Conservatively, about $12 million. Patricia's family owns half the commercial real estate in town. Ouch. It gets better. His company's stock dropped 15% yesterday. Apparently, investors don't like CEOs who star in amateur pornography. I was starting to feel almost cheerful when Angela called. "We need to talk," Veronica's sister said. "There are things you don't know." We met at Murphy's Diner, a place where the coffee was strong and the gossip was stronger. Angela looked tired, older than her 35 years, and kept glancing around like she expected Veronica to materialize from the shadows. "She's been planning this," Angela said without preamble. "The videos, the affairs, all of it." "Planning what?" "To destroy you. She's been documenting everything, building a case for an abuse claim. She was going to say you forced her into those situations, that you were blackmailing her." I felt something cold crawl up my spine. "What?" "She's got recordings, Jack. Conversations where she's crying, begging someone to stop. Fake bruises. Even a medical report claiming domestic violence. That's insane. I never touched her." "I know, but she's been setting this up for months. The plan was to get you arrested, take the house, claim victim status, and walk away with everything. Why are you telling me this?" Angela's eyes filled with tears. "Because I'm tired of watching her destroy people. She did the same thing to her college boyfriend, her first husband, even our cousin Danny. She finds successful men, marries them, then destroys them for sport. Her first husband? Suicide. She drove him to it with false accusations and public humiliation, made him look like a monster, took everything he had, then moved on to the next target. The diner suddenly felt too small, too warm. I'd been playing checkers while Veronica was playing chess, and she'd been planning her endgame from the beginning. What do I do? Fight back. She's expecting you to roll over, to let her play the victim. Don't. That evening, I called Ray and explained the situation. He listened without comment, then sighed heavily. I've seen this before. Some people are just destroyers. They can't create anything, so they tear down what other people build. Can we prove it? Maybe. Give me a few days. While Ray worked his magic, I started my own investigation. Veronica's first husband, Michael Torres, had died 3 years ago. The obituary mentioned surviving parents in Florida. A few phone calls later, I was talking to Maria Torres, Michael's mother. She killed my boy, Maria said flatly. Not with a gun or a knife, but she killed him just the same. The story was depressingly familiar. False accusations, public humiliation, financial ruin. Michael had lost his job, his friends, his reputation. The suicide came after Veronica had cleaned out their joint accounts and disappeared. She sent me a card after the funeral, Maria continued. Said she was sorry for my loss. But Michael had made his own choices, like she was doing me a favor by explaining why my son was dead. I hung up feeling sick. Veronica hadn't just cheated on me. She'd been grooming me for destruction, the same way she destroyed Michael Torres. But I had advantages Michael hadn't. I had evidence of her real activities, witnesses to her behavior, and most importantly, I had Ray. Got something, Ray called Tuesday morning. Your wife's been sloppy. She's been using the same fake bruise makeup for all her evidence photos. Same brand, same shade, even the same application pattern. How can you tell? Friend of mine works in theatrical makeup. She took one look at the photos and laughed. Said it was amateur hour. Wrong color for real bruising, applied too evenly, no swelling or inflammation. What else? The medical report's fake. Doctor who supposedly examined her has been dead for 6 months. She used his old letterhead, probably found it online. And the recordings? Edited. Badly. She recorded herself crying and begging, then spliced in your voice from other conversations. But she left the digital fingerprints. Any decent forensic analyst could prove they're fake. I felt the last piece of the puzzle click into place. Veronica thought she was so smart, so careful, but she'd made the same mistake every narcissist makes. She'd underestimated everyone else. What's the plan? We give her what she wants, let her file her fake abuse claim, then destroy her in court. That's risky. Not as risky as letting her get away with it. She'll just find another victim. Veronica made her move Friday morning. Police showed up at Molly's house with a warrant for my arrest. Domestic violence, sexual coercion, and harassment. The charges were based on her fabricated evidence and fake medical reports. I went quietly, played the confused husband who couldn't understand how his wife could make such terrible accusations. The booking officer was sympathetic. He'd seen the videos online and knew the real story. "Your lawyer's already here," he said as they processed me. "This should be quick." My attorney, Jennifer Walsh, was a sharp woman in her 50s who specialized in false accusation cases. Ray had recommended her, and she'd been preparing for this moment all week. "They'll arraign you this afternoon," she said as we sat in the holding cell. "Veronica will be there with her lawyer, probably crying for the cameras. Are you ready for this?" More than ready. The arraignment was a circus. Local news crews, curious neighbors, and half the town packed into Judge Morrison's courtroom. Veronica sat in the front row wearing a high-necked dress that covered her bruises, dabbing her eyes with tissues. When they called my case, Jennifer stood up with a briefcase full of ammunition. "Your Honor, my client is the victim of an elaborate fraud. The alleged evidence of domestic violence is fabricated, the medical reports are forged, and the accuser has a documented history of making false accusations against former partners." The prosecutor, a young man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, objected weakly. But Jennifer was just getting started. "We have forensic analysis proving the abuse photos were staged using theatrical makeup. We have evidence that the medical report was created using a dead doctor's letterhead. And we have testimony from the family of Mrs. Connolly's first husband, who committed suicide after she destroyed his life with similar false accusations." The courtroom erupted. Reporters were scribbling furiously, spectators were whispering, and Veronica's lawyer was frantically trying to object to everything at once. Judge Morrison banged his gavel for order. "Ms. Walsh, I hope you can substantiate these claims." "We can, Your Honor. We also have video evidence of Mrs. Connolly's actual activities, which directly contradict her claims of being an abused wife." "Objection!" Veronica's lawyer shouted. "Those videos were obtained illegally." "Were they?" Jennifer smiled. "Mr. Connolly was recording activities in his own home, with his own equipment, involving his own wife. There's nothing illegal about that." The judge reviewed our evidence for 20 minutes, while the courtroom buzzed with anticipation. When he looked up, his expression was thunderous. "All charges against Mr. Connolly are dismissed. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of perjury, fraud, and filing false police reports." Veronica's face went white. Her carefully constructed victim narrative was crumbling in real time, in front of half the town and 3 news crews. But I wasn't done yet. As we left the courthouse, I handed out copies of a press release Jennifer had prepared. It detailed Veronica's history of false accusations, complete with documentation of Michael Torres's suicide and testimony from his family. "This is about more than my marriage," I told the reporters. "This is about stopping a predator who destroys lives for sport." The story went viral within hours. Local news picked it up, then regional outlets, then national media. Veronica's face was plastered across social media as an example of false accusation fraud. Her consulting business evaporated overnight. Who wants to hire someone famous for lying? Greg Spalding's divorce was finalized that week. Patricia took everything, including his company stock and his Tesla. He was living in a studio apartment and working as a freelance consultant. A spectacular fall from his former CEO status. Neil Carter couldn't find work anywhere in town. Word had spread through professional networks about his involvement in the scandal. He'd moved back in with his mother and was reportedly considering leaving the state. Tom from accounting had been fired when his company decided his moral turpitude reflected poorly on their family-friendly image. His wife had filed for divorce and was seeking full custody of their children. But the real satisfaction came when Veronica was arrested for fraud and perjury. The same courthouse where she'd tried to destroy me became the scene of her perp walk, complete with news cameras and curious onlookers. I watched from across the street as they led her away in handcuffs, her carefully maintained image finally stripped away to reveal the predator underneath. Ray joined me on the courthouse steps. Feel better? Getting there. What's next? I thought about Michael Torres, about all the other men Veronica might have destroyed if I hadn't fought back, about the satisfaction of watching a bully finally face consequences. Next, I sell the house and move somewhere warm. Maybe write a book about all this. Think anyone would believe it? Probably not. Truth really is stranger than fiction. As we walked away, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, genuine happiness. Not the fake contentment of a bad marriage, but the real thing. The satisfaction of a job well done, justice served, and a predator stopped. Veronica had taught me an important lesson. Sometimes the only way to deal with a destroyer is to become one yourself. The difference is choosing your targets carefully. She'd picked the wrong victim this time.